Yaswanubhavam akilashrutisaaramekam adhyatmadipam atititirshyatam tamondam samsarinam karunayaha purana guhyam tam yasasunu upayami gurum muninam nigamakalpatarorgalitam palam shukamukat amrtadrava samyutham pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam uhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. The sixth skanda of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is so very special for all of us. It is in this skanda we get to discover the glory of Krishna Kripa, the workings of Bhagavan's grace. Sixth skanda highlights the significance of Bhagavat Kripa in our life and living. We also get to understand the workings of karma and the place of Kripa in the workings of karma. When we look at the law of karma, we often tend to ask this very important question: what is the purpose of karma? Because whenever we face an adversity in life, it is quite natural for us to ask this question: why is this happening to me? What did I do in the past in order for me to undergo this suffering? This is a very natural question all of us ask. Now, Arjuna also was experiencing adversity. And if we see how Krishna addressed that, we get to learn a very important lesson, a life lesson in terms of how do we address adversities in life. Krishna's focus in his teachings on the law of karma to Arjuna, his focus was not backward, his focus was forward. Krishna did not end up analyzing the past. He did not end up analyzing Arjuna's past actions, analyzing the past actions of everybody else, and then trying to determine the consequences which are the outcomes of the interplay of the past actions of several actors involved in Kurukshetra. Krishna did not do that. Because most often when we ask this question to ourselves, do I really deserve to experience this suffering now, this pain now? It is natural for us to start analyzing the past. Did I do this? Did I do that? What could be the cause of this particular pain that I am going through? Be it the Gita or the Bhagavatam, the answer is very clear. Instead of focusing on the past, focusing backwards, one should focus forward, addressing adversity by trying to examine our conception, our present conception of our identity and purpose of life is so very important. Instead of asking, why am I subject to this suffering? We should be asking, is there something that I must learn regarding my identity and the purpose of my life? Therefore, the answer to the question, what is the purpose of karma? The answer cannot be retribution, punishment. Karma is not for punishment. Karma is not for retribution. Karma is for reformation. The story of Ajamila is such an important example that we have to understand the workings of karma, the purpose of karma, the role of Krishna Kripa in the workings of karma. And that is the reason why in the 6th canto, while discussing Ajamila Charithram, Shuka prepares the ground. In the last session, we saw how Parikshit summarized his learnings, which then brought to that central question. Parikshit wanted to know the answer to a very important question. How do I ensure that I do not go to Naraka? How can one prevent going to Naraka knowing that one is helplessly impelled to keep committing Papa Karma? If we examine our lives, we see that most of the time we are compelled to perform Papa Karma. Sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. The more we analyze, the more dreadful it becomes. And Parikshit therefore asks this question. Knowing the workings of karma, where every karma has a karma phala, the law of karma is inescapable, and therefore one keeps accumulating more and more papa karma, how can then one avoid going to Naraka? What is the way? And it is in that context Shuka begins to recount the glorious Charitra of Ajamila. It is in that context of explaining Parikshit how, irrespective of the workings of the law of karma, there is a role for the lawmaker. We cannot look at the law devoid of the lawmaker. We cannot purely look at the law of karma, the workings of karma, without looking at Krishna. And Shuka clearly gives a message to Parikshit. There is a significant role that Krishna plays. This is where his kripa comes into play. And through Ajamila Charitra, we get to understand how we can invoke Krishna Kripa to escape the wrath of hell, to escape the wrath of Naraka. Shuka therefore begins his account on Ajamila Charitra by setting the stage. He looks at Parikshit and says, Atra cha udaharanti imam itihasam puratanam. He Parikshit, dutanam Vishnu yamayoh samvadastam nibodame. Let me now recount that interesting samvada that happened between Yamadutas and Vishnudutas. This conversation between the Yamakinkaras and Vishnudutas is part of the Ajamila Charitra. Let me therefore give you an account of this samvada through which, hey Parikshit, you will clearly understand the role of Kripa in the law of karma. And you will also get the answer to your question. How can one avoid going to Naraka? Now, he starts to talk about Ajamila and his past. The story of Ajamila is so very interesting. Ajamila was one who was born in a Brahmana Kula. He learnt all the Shastras and he was a stickler to performing his duties as prescribed by the Shastras. And he was one who was blessed with a dutiful wife, blessed with parents who did everything for him, and all was well until one fatal moment when he experienced a heart attack. When I say he experienced a heart attack, immediately we will think of the physical heart attack. No doubt, physical heart attack is very, very dreadful. One of the most dreadful attacks that we can ever experience is a physical heart attack, no doubt. But there is an attack which is even more dreadful than a physical heart attack. This is the attack of not the physical heart, but the metaphorical heart, our seat of our emotions, our manas. And one of the worst forces that can attack our heart is the force of lust. And Ajamila experienced a lust-induced heart attack. When there is a physical heart attack, one becomes physically unconscious. But when there is a lust-induced heart attack, one becomes morally and spiritually unconscious. When there is a physical heart attack, one becomes inactive. One becomes unconscious, inactive, becomes a heap on the floor. In the case of a lust-induced heart attack, one becomes hyperactive, not inactive. One becomes so hyperactive that one is impelled, compelled, driven, madly chasing after fulfilling, becoming a slave to the lust. This is exactly what happened to Ajamila. That fatal moment where Ajamila became a slave to his lust, to his own vasanas. This is where, even in the Gita, Krishna constantly keeps warning Arjuna that one needs to be always monitoring one's own mind. Because even when we are on the right track, on the right path, our own vasanas can arise and take charge at any moment. Any external trigger can result in devastating consequences if one is not watchful. One needs to be constantly watchful of one's mind. One needs to be constantly, that is the reason why this connection with Krishna has to be constant. Every time there is a disconnection, there is a possibility of all our negative vasanas taking charge of our lives. And it is one of those moments which completely changed, destroyed Ajamila's life and his living. Ajamila, that fatal moment, he encountered a prostitute and he was overtaken by the force of his own vasanas, became a slave to her, and that started the downfall of Ajamila. He became a slave to his lust, that he renounced his family, his dutiful wife, his parents, even his occupation, and he went after the prostitute, began to live with her, and in that process went completely in the wrong ways of making money to please her. And in that process, he also had 10 sons through her. Ajamila's case is of a case of one falling down from great heights. Now, it is falling down is not really a failure. Staying down is the failure. Falling down happens. It is quite natural. The fall is quite natural in anybody's life. After all, every human being is an admixture of gunas, admixture of vasanas. So, there are going to be slips and falls. Falling down is not really something which we need to be worried about, but staying down is what we need to be worried about. Ajamila's fall was a steep fall, and his failure was not falling down, his failure was staying down, staying at the very depths of life, very animalistic way of life and living, purely for bodily gratification. And he spent 80 odd years wasting his life thus. Now, this is what is said. The problem is not about attachment to the wrong things. It is our forgetfulness. Now, Krishna talks about how we all fall down, the spiritual fall. Krishna explains this through a beautiful process in the Gita. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammohat smriti vibramaha smriti bhramso buddhinashat pranashyati. a beautiful process, not beautiful, but a process, beautifully put, a process of how we fall down, all because of karma, attachment driven by the karma, which results in, he says, smriti bhramsaha. What is smriti? Is memory. One loses memory. Losing what memory? Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness of Krishna. That is the dangerous thing that can happen to us in our life and living. The moment we forget Krishna, which means we place ourselves in the gravity pull of the sense objects. We get dragged easily by all the sense objects. Until we keep remembering Krishna, the gravity pull of the sense objects is very weak, because Krishna is there for us, holding us. The moment we forget him, we get pulled very easily. So this gravity pull of the sense objects is also not constant. It depends on two things: our conditioning and our conditions. Our conditioning, our vasanas. Because it is the same sense object can have a different force on different people, depends on one's own vasanas, conditioning. Also on conditions. There could be conditions where tamas is on the ascendancy, and it is those times, those dangerous times, then when one can succumb to one's desires so very easily. So therefore, depending on the conditions and conditionings, the gravity pull can change, and in those, it is Ajamila as an example where forgetting Krishna resulted in him being dragged away by the world, and in that process he ended up wasting his entire life. Now time passed by. Ajamila continued to commit papa karmas one after the other, because he had to make money, and he did all kinds of wrong deeds, all to make money, only to please. And in that process he ended up accumulating so much of papa karmas. He became a sinner to unimaginable proportions. And then as he aged, death came knocking at his doorstep, and he realized it was time that the numbers, now the days are numbered. And Ajamila was worried. He was gripped with fear. Now, this is what happens when there is too much attachment to the world. One is in fear of death. It is no doubt that death is one of the scariest of realities. When there is no understanding of death, we are in fear. And death seems to be life's, not only life's scariest reality, death also becomes a destroyer of all meaning of life. Because then we start looking at death as something which completely takes away everything that we possess. All our relationships, all our objects of attachment, and even we believe that we too will cease to exist, which is what makes us so fearful of death. And death becomes a destroyer of meaning, while death actually has to be a restorer of meaning. When we are in ignorance, death becomes a destroyer of meaning. And Ajamila is now in fear, and on the deathbed he realizes that the minutes are now nearing as he has to exit. He is unable to rise above his attachments, and he is looking around his house, his children. And Ajamila had a very special attachment to his youngest son. Incidentally, he was named Narayana. And Narayana, the little boy, was playing. Dure kridanaka saktam putram Narayanahavyam plavitena swaronochair ajuhava akulendriyaha. Ajuhava akulendriyaha. Akulendriyaha. Full of anxiety. Because Ajamila knows now any time he is going to die, and he is unable to reconcile to reality. And in that process, he is in fear, he is full of anxiety, and he is looking at his little son with who is attached to so much. Dure kridanaka saktam. Short distance away, the little boy Narayana was playing. Putram Narayanahvayam. He was named Narayana. Plaviten, with tears rolling down from his eyes. Swareno chair, with his voice very high. Ajuhava akulendriyaha. Ajamila called out, "Hey Narayana!" This is where something happens then and there. Something magical happens. While this is happening, there are those Yamakinkaras who have come to take Ajamila, and Ajamila could see them. He's terrified looking at the Yamakinkaras. The Yamakinkaras, with their noose in the hand, are asking Ajamila to accompany. Time is up for you. You must now accompany us to Naraka. And looking at Yamakinkaras, Ajamila is terrified. On the one hand, he knows he has no choice. He has to go. He will be dragged to Naraka by the Yamakinkaras. On the other hand, he is so much attached to Narayana, his son. And therefore, he calls out. Now, at the Antakale, this is Antakala happening, in the Gita says, very clearly says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajatyante kalevaram tamtameveti konte sada tadbhava bhavita. Now, did Ajamila remember Narayana? That's the question that all need to ask here. When he called out Narayana, was it a remembrance or was it an utterance? The answer is very clear. It is only an utterance. So therefore, Ajamila did not get moksha. The story did not end here. Most often, when we talk about Ajamila Charithra, the story almost ends here. We say Ajamila got moksha by calling out Narayana. And we therefore conclude that irrespective of the way we lead our lives, if we call out Narayana, then moksha is guaranteed. Completely wrong conclusion. The story is not really ended. It only is about to start now. Ajamila's calling out Narayana is only an utterance. But then, utterance of Narayana Nama itself has its own magic. When we chant Harinama, what happens? We not only chant the Nama as Shabda, when it comes out, also goes back in through our ears. The power of Nama, Ajamila Charithra also highlights to us Bhagavan Nama Mahima, the glory of Bhagavan's Namas. Our Shastras categorically declare there is no difference between Bhagavan and his Nama. Krishna is not different from his Nama. Because when we say Krishna, hey Krishna, he is manifesting right here through his Nama. The Nama itself is Bhagavan's manifestation. How do we invoke Bhagavan? He is there with us all the time, and whenever we chant his Nama, the Shabda is a manifestation of Bhagavan. Now, irrespective of how we chant the Nama, Bhagavan will manifest. Now, the chanting of his Nama can be three ways. One can chant with bhakti, Hey Narayana, with all the bhakti. One can chant without bhakti. One can be an anti-devotee. Without any devotion, one can be even offensive in his chanting, Hey Narayana. Or one can be indifferent and just change. In this case, Ajamila is indifferent. He is actually calling out his son, Narayana. He did not have bhakti. At the same time, he was also not offensive. All these three ways of chanting Bhagavan Nama will result in Bhagavan manifesting. Because when the Nama is chanted, the Shabda has come out. And the Shabda is nothing but manifestation of Bhagavan. Now, Bhagavan has manifested. Whether that manifestation of Bhagavan can be perceived by us is the question. Now, there is no fan here, but way back, if you look at any fan, the fan receives 100% power. But for me to get the air from the fan, to get the maximum air, the switch needs to be turned progressively upwards, so that the fan will start giving me maximum air. If I do not turn it in the right direction, the air that the fan will generate will be less. The fan has got 100% power. The power is there. The Nama has 100% manifestation of Bhagavan. How much I receive, how much I perceive is my own receptivity. When I have bhakti, I receive, I perceive completely Bhagavan's manifestation. When I have no bhakti, I do not perceive him at all. When I am indifferent, I do not. But Bhagavan's Nama has manifested whenever I chant his Nama. And in the case of Ajamila, Bhagavan's Nama, when he chanted Narayana, the Narayana Nama also came back and entered his ears. So the utterance also led to remembrance. Ajamila is one who has studied Shastras. He is not someone who is ignorant. He studied, he knows the importance of Narayana Nama. That is the reason why he is named his son Narayana. It is different story. These days we name somebody Narayana and end up calling him Naru. No use. We name somebody Janaki and call Janu. What is the use? All good name, Bhagavan's names, and then we cut it. And in being modern, completely we lose the significance of calling out Bhagavan's Nama. Ajamila is not somebody ignorant. He studied the Vedas. He is a Brahmana. And he has engaged in proper study of the Shastras. So therefore, he knows the Shastras. His problem is not knowing, his problem is forgetfulness. He is only forgotten. This is what we call spiritual amnesia. The disease that we all have is spiritual amnesia. We completely lose track of our own identity and our relationship with Bhagavan. Now, Ajamila's disease is this amnesia. So now, the moment he heard the Narayana Nama back again, when Narayana Nama as Shabda re-entered, this is the power of Nama. Nama is so very magical. The Shastras say, Bhagavan's Namas can counter any Papa Karmas. We can eradicate all the Papas. In this case of Ajamila, now immediately he realizes this. Ajamila, the Narayana Nama, but then there is still no devotion. He still does not have bhakti. But because of chanting of the Narayana Nama, there is an outcome which is still positive. That is what we will see. What is the outcome of his chanting the Narayana Nama, even though unintentionally? Now here, Ajuhava Akulendriyaha. The moment he chanted, crying out to his son Narayana, something else happened. Nishamya Mriyamanasya Mukhato Harikirtanam Bharturnama Maharaja Parshadaha Sahasapatan. For Ajamila, he is only crying out, shouting, Hey Narayana. For somebody else, that shouting of Ajamila, it seems, was like Harikirtanam. Now, he is only calling out his son. Vishnudutas were going to them. The Narayana Nama is Kirtana. Nishamya Mriyamanasya. Hearing this shout of Ajamila, which sounded to the Vishnudutas, the Bhaktas, Mukhato Hari Kirtanam. To them, it sounded as though somebody is glorifying Narayana. They do not know the why of the chant. They only know the what of the chant. Ajamila's why of calling out Narayana is different. But the Narayana Shabda has its own power, has its own magic. And listening to the Narayana Shabda, it seems the Vishnudutas immediately arrived at the scene. Mukhato Harikirtanam Bharturnama Maharaj. Vishnudutas, somebody is calling out our master's name, our Lord's name. We should be there immediately. And then they landed up, Vishnudutas. Arshadaha Sahasapatan. Immediately they landed up there. And then, as the Yamadutas were about to drag Ajamila with the noose, immediately Vishnudutas intervened and said, What are you doing here? You are not supposed to be doing. Yamadutas were shocked. Who are you to come and say this? This person deserves punishment and therefore we are taking him to Naraka. Vishnudutas immediately said, No way. You cannot do what you are doing. Now, Yamadutas realized that now they are helpless and they started giving an explanation as to why they are doing what they are doing. They started talking about what is dharma, what is adharma, what are the laws of karma, and how when one continues to do punya karma, one accumulates punya. When one continues to do papa karma, one accumulates papa karma. And continuously accumulating papa karma will eventually take one to naraka. And therefore they started explaining this to Vishnudutas. Sambhavanti hibhadrani viparitani chanaghaha karinam gunasangosti dehanam nahya akarmakrit yenayavan yatha dharmaha dharmaveho samihitaha savevat tat phalam bhunkte tatatavat amrutavaihi. One has to necessarily experience the phala of every karma. There is no escaping the fact. You very well know, hey Vishnudutas, of all the people, you should know that if one does a wrong deed, one has to face the consequences of the wrong deed. Urdhvam gacchanti sattvastaha madhye tishtanti rajasaha. Where Krishna clearly explains, when one does punya karma, one goes to urdhvalokas. When one does both a mix of punya and papa, one gets stuck in the madhyalokas. Then adho gacchanti tamasaha. The one who does papa karma and accumulates have to necessarily go to narakalokas. So therefore, hey Vishnudutas, you yourself know, compelled by the forces of gunas, the jivatmas are stuck in the cycle of samsara and they are continuously bound to the cycle. They go on taking birth after birth after birth in order to expend this karma, and they take different kinds of bodies in order to exhaust their karmas. This is the law which is set by your own master, and therefore how can you now say no to us taking them to Narakaloka? And then they continue to explain to the Vishnudutas. Yathagyas tamasa yukta upaste vyaktamevahi naveda purvam aparam nashta janma smritistatha. You very much know the beautiful analogy they are giving. The Jivatma identifies with the body and thinking that I am this body ends up doing all kinds of karma which have then consequences, punya or papa. Just like how the analogy given here is, when we dream, we take several bodies in the dream. We take several bodies and we start identifying with the body in the dream. And then after that particular activity in the dream is over, that body is gone, we take another body. And after the dream, we do not know what happened before and what happened after. Similarly, dream is also real. Real in the sense, dream is also a result of all the karmas that we have accumulated. Everything that happens in the dream is in a way of the accumulated karmas are being expended in the dream by doing various actions. Similarly, even in the wakeful state, the jiva identifies with the body and thinks I am the body. In that process, not knowing the previous body that it had. In the previous life, the jiva identified with that body, thinking that I am that body. Then in this current life, it is identifying with another body. Similarly, it has been going on and on and on. Every time it identifies with one body, not knowing what happened before, what happened after. And this identification then compels the jivatma to continue to do actions which are body conscious all the time. And it continues to only accumulate more karma, never finding an exit out of the cycle of samsara. And tadetat shodashakalam lingam shaktitrayam mahat dhatte anusamsritim pumsi harsha shoka bhayartidam. The Yamadutas are telling the Vishnudutas, this way the Jivatma is forced to keep taking different bodies. Harsha, Shoka, Bhaya, Arti. The Atman takes one type of body. It could be Deva Sharira and it is very jubilant. Then immediately in the next birth, it can take a Manushya Sharira and it can experience Shoka all the time. It can take the Sharira of an animal and it can be in Bhaya all the time. Bottom line, whichever body it takes, Artidam. It is essentially samsara is only a place of distress. Tadedat shodashakalam. What is the reason for all of this? Shodashakalam lingam shaktitrayam mahat. Here, lingam is the subtle, sukshma sharira. The sukshma sharira is made up of shodashakala, panchabhutas, the 10 indriyas, and the manas, all put together, is the subtle body. It is in this subtle body that all our vasanas are very faithfully stored. And the Jivatma carries this subtle body. The physical body, the gross body, keeps getting destroyed. One life after the other, new gross bodies are acquired, but the subtle body is always carried from one life to the other. In the cycle of samsara, the Atman is carrying this subtle body. Shodashakalam lingam, shaktitrayam mahat, which is subject to the forces of the 3 gunas. And with this subtle body, this is the reason, the cause for birth, the cause for taking a particular type of embodiment is this sukshma sharira, which houses the vasanas. And because of this, this process goes on and on and on. It says, samshritim pumsi, anusamshritim, perpetual cycle, rotation of samsara, birth and death. Therefore, the Yamadutas look at Vishnuduta and says, knowing all of this, this Ajamila led a life of sin, abominable sins, which cannot be accepted at all. And he accumulated so much papa karma, and therefore he deserves naraka, and that is why we are here. Our master Yama has sent us. Therefore we are here. Time is up for Ajamila, and we need to now drag him to Narakaloka. And that is why we are here. Therefore you cannot stop us. Now Vishnu Dutas immediately have a very important answer. All this is fine. Yes, we too understand that this Ajamila has accumulated huge papa karmas. But there is something that he did right at the end, which is what has brought us here. They say, Ayam hi krita nirveshaha janma koti amhasam api yat vyajahara viveshaha namasvastyayanam harehe. Namasvasti ayanam harehe. Harinama swasti ayanam, the means of liberation. Nama is the means of liberation for anyone. More than Bhagavan, Bhagavan's Nama is more accessible to us. It is the means for liberation. And that means of liberation has been invoked by Ajamila. Ayam hi krita nirveshaha. This person, Ajamila, krita nirveshaha, has already started the process of atonement. By uttering the Nama, Harinama, Narayana, you must realize that he has already started the process of atonement. You must know, Vishnudutas are saying that anyone, whosoever, whatever, even if he is unqualified, he may be unqualified, but he is not disqualified. You must know the difference between the two. Everyone is unqualified, but they are not disqualified. There is an opportunity available to all for reformation. And this Ajamila, how is that opportunity given? That opportunity is given when the journey starts from PR towards KR. Now, we are all thinking, what is this PR and what is this KR? We need to refresh our memories to what we discussed last week. PR, R stands for Raga. PR, Prakriti Raga. KR, Krishna Raga. Prakriti Raga keeps us in samsara. Raga means attachment. Prakriti Raga, attachment to Prakriti, keeps us in samsara. As long as we have Prakriti Raga, we continue to stay in samsara. When we cultivate KR, Krishna Raga, that is when we can exit samsara. Now, this journey from PR to KR has 4 other R's. Recognition, remorse, repentance, and rectification. This process has already started for Ajamila. The moment he chanted Narayana Nama, the first step in the process of atonement, recognition, is already started. So therefore, you cannot now take him. He has to be given an opportunity. He has to be given a chance. Everyone has to be given a chance in this world. Krishna himself has said, anyone, no, there is no one called a sinner who is damned forever. Everybody is given opportunity for transformation, for reformation. And therefore, ayam hi krita nirveshaha. The process of atonement has already started. Janmakoti amhasam api. Just that one Narayana Nama has already countered Janmakoti papas, whether you recognize it or not. Just by chanting that one Nama, that Harinama has countered the influence of Janmakoti papa, and therefore they have given Ajamila an opportunity now. He's already started the process of atonement, the process of prayaschitta, and therefore you cannot take him now. He needs to continue the journey of the reformation. Yad yajahara vivasaha nama swastyayanam harehe. It is here. Avasenapi yannamni kirtite sarvapatakaihi puman vimuchyate sadyaha simhatraste mrugair iva. This is a important declaration in the Garuda Purana. Avasenapi yannamni kirtite sarvapatakaihi puman vimuchyate sadyaha simhatraste mrugair iva. Simhatraste mrugair iva. When the lion roars, just the roar of the lion is enough for all the animals in the forest to run away. Similarly, Narayana Nama, when Harinama is chanted, that is like a lion's roar, which will immediately eradicate countless papas instantaneously. That is what exactly has happened in the case of Ajamila. He is now given an opportunity now that where he can start atonement. Harinama, the outcome of chanting Harinama has now given him an opportunity, a second chance. Not just a second chance, we keep getting innumerable chances in life, whether we recognize it or not. Bhagavan is so very compassionate. Krishna is not focused on our wrongdoing. If he is focused on our wrongdoing, then he becomes a punisher. He is not somebody who is looking to punish. He is somebody who is looking to always give us an opportunity to reform. That is the reason why every pain in samsara cannot be equated to punishment. A pain is not to be equated to punishment. A pain must be equated to an opportunity. Opportunity to know Bhagavan's purpose, to understand the reason behind that experience. And therefore, here in the case of Ajamila, by chanting Narayana Nama, he is now presented with an opportunity for reformation. And just like how a lion's roar immediately results in animals fleeing, the moment Bhagavat Shabda comes out, any form doesn't matter. The very fact that Bhagavan Nama is chanted, that Shabda itself is enough to counter the papa of several lifetimes. And the Vishnudutas further explain, Sanketyam parihasyam va sthobam heralam yeva va Vaikuntha nama grahanam asesha agaharam viduhu. Asesha agaharam viduhu. Asesha, innumerable, agaharam. All the sins, the nama of Bhagavan, when it is chanted, is so very profound that the power can counter innumerable papas. How? Even if it is not chanted with full devotion. This is the beauty, this is the power of Bhagavan's Nama. As I was saying, the Nama can be chanted in a very offensive manner. The Nama can be chanted in a very indifferent manner. No bhakti, very indifferent. Like Ajamila is calling out to son, Hey Narayana, no devotion, very indifferent. The Nama can also be chanted with all the bhakti. But the Nama is like the sun. Even before sun rises, early morning, sun's twilight is enough for the thieves to run away. Sun need not rise. Sun's twilight is enough for the thieves to run away. So even before Bhagavan's nama is chanted with all bhakti, even if it is chanted, that very chant is enough to counter the thieves of all the papas. Here, the Vishnu Dutas are explaining, Sanketyam, even when Bhagavan nama is uttered, it is uttered by something else is being referred to, like in the case of Ajamila. Ajamila is not calling out Narayana Bhagavan, he is calling out Narayana his son. Parihasyam va, it can be even mockingly, jokingly used. Stobham, Bhagavan nama can be uttered while singing. Why he is saying this? Singing for the pleasure of singing, not for the pleasure of Krishna. But if Bhagavan namas are uttered as part of that singing, helanam, carelessly, while eating, while playing, while neglectfully, even when it is chanted, Vaikuntha nama grahanam, asesha agaharam viduhu. You must know that that nama has the power to counter the forces of papas. Such is the power, because Bhagavan manifests as his nama. A child may not know the qualities of fire, but if the child goes and touches fire, it will burn his hands. One need not know the power of Bhagavan nama. Bhagavan nama has its own power. And this is exactly what the Vishnu Dutas are saying here. And they are saying, and they are continuing to say, Gurunam cha lagunam cha guruni cha laguni cha prayaschittani papanam jnatoktani maharshibihi taistani aghani puyante tapodana vratadibihi nadharmajam tat hridayam tadapi ishangri sevaya. For the Shastras talk about prayaschitta. For everything which is very, very intense, there is intense prayaschitta has to be done. For any light wrong deed, there is a light prayaschitta that is done. Any prayaschitta that are done, if they are only done as just rectifying it, it is not going to be enough. Because any kind of vrata, tapa, dana that are done will not uproot the desires. Nadharmajam tat hridayam tadapi ishangri sevaya. Ultimately, only when one submits to Bhagavan, only then one can uproot all the desires. And how can one submit to Bhagavan? One can submit to Bhagavan only through Bhagavan nama. And Vishnudutas say, Ajnanat atavajnanat uttama shloka namayat sankirtanam agam pumsaha tadhet yedo yatanalaha. Just like how a dry grass is burnt away, similarly by fire. A dry grass is burnt away by fire. Similarly, ajnanat atavajnanat, whether I know or do not know, out of ignorance or with knowledge, uttama shloka namayat. Uttama shloka, Bhagavan's nama is uttama shloka. When I chant his nama, the nama has that power to burn away papas, just like how fire burns away dry grass. That is why when we chant Bhagavan's namas, we do not need to be worried whether we have complete understanding of the meaning of the nama. Most of the time we have this question, I am chanting Vishnu Sahasranama, but I don't know the meaning of any nama. Is it useful to chant? Very much, because Bhagavan, every nama has the power of burning away the papas, just like fire burns away dry grass. And the Vishnu Dutas give another beautiful analogy here. Yatagadam viryatamam upayuktam yadrichaya ajanatopyatma gunam kuryan mantro api udahritam. When a medicine is prescribed to us, we may not know the potency of the medicine. We may accept the medicine, we may not accept the medicine. We may not know the potency of the medicine, but the moment we take the medicine will have its own impact on the body. Similarly, whether we know the potency of Bhagavan Nama or we do not know the potency of Bhagavan Nama, it will have its effect. The moment the Nama is chanted, it will immediately have the effect of cleansing, purifying, elevating, countering the consequences of Papa Karma. Vijaha Pashad Vinirmuktaha Gatabihi Prakritim Gataha Vavande Shirasa Vishno Kinkaran Darshanotsawaha. Ajamila looks at the Vishnu Dutas, Kinkaran Darshanotsa, he's very pleased seeing them. He's been listening to this conversation. He's lying on his deathbed. Now he's listening to the conversation between the Yamakinkaras and the Vishnu Dutas. He's very pleased that the Vishnu Dutas have come here, and he's offering his respects to them, bowing his head and prostrating to them. And the moment he prostrates to them, they immediately disappear. They immediately disappear because now they have done their job. The Yamadutas have returned and they have done their job. Now Ajamila, the process of atonement of Ajamila begins. Ajamilo api atakarnya dutanam yamakrishnayoho dharmam bhagavatam shuddham traivedyam cha gunashrayam bhaktiman bhagavati asu mahatyam shravanadharehe anutapo mahanasit smarato ashubhamatmanaha. This triggers this whole conversation between Yamadutas and the Vishnu Dutas, triggers the process within Ajamila. The process of recognition, remorse, repentance and rectification. Recognition, the first step, recognizing all his defects, all the wrong deeds, the heap of accumulated papas, a life that has been wasted. And he also realizes how, he understood this conversation, he also realizes ultimately it's futile to live an animalistic life chasing bodily pleasures. One will only end up experiencing distress and sorrow, and he realizes what is Bhagavata Dharma and what is Bhagavad Dharma. Bhagavad Dharma is to love and protect. Bhagavata Dharma is to love and serve. To love and to serve Bhagavan is one's dharma, and it is in that dharma that one can experience ultimate happiness. And therefore the process starts for him. He starts to then reflect on his own life. And soaham tata yatishyami yata chittendriya nilaha yata anabhuya atmanam ande tamasi majjaye. What a life I have led. I have been immersed in the darkness of ignorance. I have fallen, I have stooped so low, doing things which are unimaginable, doing all kinds of papa karma. How did I let my own indriyas loose? How did I completely lose control of my own mind? How did I end up doing all kinds of these atrocities? How did I commit all these sins all these years? He starts to recognize all of them. It is not just about recognition, it is also about remorse, being truly sorrowful. And that being truly sorrowful then should drive the need for change, repentance, paschattapa. That paschattapa invokes Bhagavan's mercy, because Krishna is only looking for this. It is like we take this famous analogy of the ocean being, the samsara being the ocean. In the ocean of samsara, we are constantly tossed about by the waves of various kinds of temptations, various kinds of forces keep tossing us here and there, and unless we hold on to an anchor, we will not stay steady. Now, the beauty of this anchor for us, Krishna being the anchor, he is everywhere, wherever we are. Wherever we are. It is normally regular anchors are there in only one place in the ocean. But Krishna, the anchor, is available to us wherever we are. Whether we fall down or we go up in life, whatever be our moral standards, whether we lead our lives based on morality or immorality, how much soever we are tossed around by the waves of temptation, he is there constantly available, and his focus is not looking at we being tossed about by the waves. His focus is appreciating whether we are, in spite of the waves, attempting to hold on to the anchor. This is what Krishna is looking. He is not looking at how we are being tossed about in the waves, because he understands the forces of our vasanas will impel us, compel us to do wrong deeds. But he is looking, in spite of these forces of our vasanas, are we always trying to attempt reaching out, holding on to that anchor? if we even try a little to reach out to the anchor, the beauty of Krishna, the anchor, is it keeps coming towards us. And holding on to the anchor, one can stay steady. And this is where Ajamila realizes that to stay steady with all the forces and not keep falling down, it is very important to hold on to Krishna, the anchor. Now, this is where the fourth step, the 4 R's, the rectification becomes so very important. What is rectification? Prayaschitta is not just about doing various kinds of vratas. If there is no Krishna bhakti, Prayaschitta is not going to address the root cause of our problems. The root cause being our vasanas, the root cause being our need for bodily gratification. If that has to be addressed, rectification needs to have bhakti ingrained. Let's take the analogy of any illness, any disease. When we are infected with germs, now obviously we take medicines, we take antibiotics to drive the germs away. Temporarily we will get cured of the disease, but that is not enough. Healing is not just about driving away germs. Healing is also about building the immunity of our body to the germs so that we prevent relapse. We prevent the germs once again attacking us again and taking over. Bhakti is that immunity booster. Bhakti is a combination of antibiotics and vaccines and vitamins and everything that we need to prevent that we are completely immune and we stay connected with Krishna. Therefore, Ajamila realizes, therefore I have to do something so that I do not fall down again. I have to now rise. How do I do? Iti jata sunirvedaha kshanasangena sadhushu Gangadvaram upeyaya mukta sarvanubhandanaha. Iti jata sunirvedaha. So nirvedam. No. He experiences nirveda. No, nirveda, for any mumukshu, nirveda is so very important. Nirveda is looking at the wasted time, recognizing the wasted time in one's life, chasing worldly pleasures. Ajamila has that nirveda. No, there are several steps for a mumukshu. No, viveka, nirveda, then virakti, bhiti, so on. Now, viveka is that discrimination between what is right and wrong. Nirveda is so very important to recognize how much time we have wasted chasing things that we shouldn't be chasing all the worldly pleasures. And experiencing that nirveda, immediately Ajamila decides that he needs to take the right step forward. He needs to reach out to his anchor. Kshana sangena sadhushu. Also, to the benefit of Ajamila, Sadhu Sangha is also now accelerating his reformation process. The 2 things are really accelerating here. One is the power of Nama, the other is Sadhu Sangha. With his association with the Vishnu Bhaktas, that engagement with Vishnu Bhaktas, that Sadhu Sangha is now helping him in his reformation process. Kshana Sangena Sadhushu. Even, that is what Shastras say. Sadhu Sangha, Sat Sangha is so very important. Even for one moment, we experience Sadhu Sangha. That one moment will accelerate our spiritual journey forward. Kshana Sangena Sadhushu. What then happened? Gangadvaram upeyaya. Gangadvaram is Haridwara. We all need to now go back to our yatra, where we also briefly discuss Ajamila Charithram in Haridwara. He decided to go to Haridwara. Gangadvaram upeyaya mukta sarvanubhandhanam. Now he is now ready to completely detach from the world, because now his attachment to Krishna started growing. Reaching Haridwara, he spent time in Haridwara on chanting Vishnu Nama, serving Bhagavan in the temples and doing all kinds of kainkarya, and then all the papa karmas that he has accumulated slowly started to get weakened. He started to reach a stage where he was now ready for the final step. Sakam vihayaso vipraha mahapurusha kinkareihi. Hemam Vimanamaruhya Yayau Yatra Shriyah Patihi. Now, with the power of Nama Mahima, with the power of his transformation of performing bhakti to Narayana, then came that final moment for Ajamila. Sakam Vihayasa Vipraha Mahapurusha Kinkaraihi. The Vishnudutas once again came back. Vishnudutas flying in a golden Vimana, they came all the way, now for a different reason. The earlier was to come and stop the Yamakinkaras from grabbing and dragging him to Narakaloka. Now they have an invitation for Ajamila to Vaikuntha. Now the Vishnudutas come in a vehicle, and then inviting him, they take him together with them. Haimam Vimanam Aruhya, onboarding. Once he boarded the Vimana, he, together with the Vishnudutas, he travelled to Vaikuntha. Yayau Yatra Shriyah Patihi, finally reaching the ultimate destination, thus attaining moksha. Ajamila Charithra thus gives us a very important lesson, a lesson on the role of Krishna Kripa in the workings of karma. And we also get to understand the glory of grace and glory of the namas of Bhagavan, how accessible they are, and it is through namas that we can access Bhagavan. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.